With 2024 now behind us, it's time to take a look ahead to 2025. It's a bit odd to say that 2024 is now over, but here we are in January of 2025, and Xbox has, I think, a lot going for it. While past years could be defined as critical years, right? Critical years meaning Microsoft has to kind of get its house in order to be able to ship games, and not just ship games, but ship quality games, define the strategy, get Activision moving. And 2024 really kind of brought that all together, and so it's time to sort of start looking forward to what 2025 is going to be, and I think for the first time in a while, we could define this as not critical for the success of the brand because the strategy is already in place. So let's dive in here. So let's get things going. So 2024 showed a lot of true colors about Xbox, right? And the multi-platform strategy is now here to stay, and it is not going anywhere. Your games are more likely shipping on every platform, and Xbox exclusives are more rare than the norm. And that is just the fact of the business, and that is what Microsoft told us is the path forward, and so just kind of get used to it even if you don't like it. They've also told us that everything is an Xbox, right? This is Microsoft's ongoing narrative that, hey, you can play your Xbox content anywhere, not just on Xbox consoles. This is setting up, I think, a bigger play for things we'll see potentially in 2025, but more likely in the next generation of consoles, if you will. But again, it's this ongoing narrative shift that Microsoft has been pushing. We've also seen in 2024 more Activision games finally hitting the Game Pass catalog. And I think it's fair to say that Microsoft has finally crossed the event horizon, if you will. They can now proven to the world and themselves that they can ship quality games, right? Indiana Jones ended with a bang. It has been very well received. They've also shipped things like Call of Duty, and yeah, you might say that's not an Xbox. It is. This is Xbox publishing at the end of the day. You can also toss things in there like R and Hellblade 2, and Xbox has, I think, moved beyond the Redfall mistakes that they have made where they felt like they just had to ship something and then instead of delaying it at the end of the day. The thing that is important to take away here is that in 2024, Xbox proved that it can ship quality stuff. It can do things, and they are feeling like a little bit more well-oiled, especially in the back half of 2024, of getting this content generation machine that is so critical to the long-term success of the company now rolling, right? For a while, it's like, man, where is all this stuff showing up? Can they ship games on time? Can they ship games that are good? And so I think the back half of 2024 specifically really started to prove that, like, yes, they can. They can get in a rhythmic beat of marketing and shipping, which is really critical to the long-term success of the brand. But when it comes to like Xbox itself, the thing that Microsoft says, hey, you got to judge us by is Game Pass. So Game Pass here is going to kick off 2025, which is, I think, where we should begin with things like Avowed. Now, Avowed was, technically speaking, supposed to be a 2024 title, if you remember. Microsoft said that they pushed it to February because, hey, things were so jam-packed, which, seeing how well Indiana Jones has done, they might be right. And so whatever it is, Avowed got more time. They said it was not a delay. They wanted to be real clear that it was not a delay, but it's now shipping in 2025. And so Microsoft will start off 2025 with a big branded title release that will be coming. There's many other titles that will come in 2025, but this is February, so we're talking 8 weeks-ish from the time of this, maybe 7 weeks, something like that. So just kind of sort of keep that in mind. There's other titles too coming, like the one I'm really looking forward to. I think Avowed will be great. I don't have any, it's not trying to downplay Avowed. I'm really interested in Doom Dark Ages, right? Who doesn't love just the Doom series? And so we've got things like that coming. South of Midnight, there will be a Fable, a Call of Duty. And so like that's a big 2025 for a single company to release all of those titles. So the big question really, and I really mean this, becomes, Xbox has proven that they can get games into Game Pass. They've proven that they can now ship high quality titles. The question becomes, is that enough? Is that enough for Game Pass, for people to subscribe to the service that Microsoft has been telling us the thing that's what they want to be pushed is Game Pass? Is it enough? And I don't mean that like these games aren't great, but I mean seriously, right? That's the big bet. Microsoft's, monkey in the moonshot, if you will, is that if we ship consistent quality games, people will pay a subscription fee for those consistent quality games. That is the bet. That is the narrative. If there's a potential that is not a true narrative in the segment, and that this all falters. I think we're probably past that, right? I think Microsoft is hopefully seeing growth. The next time that Microsoft, fingers crossed, will actually share Game Pass subscriber numbers should be at the end of January during their earnings call. And I believe what their last number was like 34, 35 million, something in there. And so the question becomes, we should have seen a boost, right? Call of Duty shipped, Indiana Jones shipped, two very big name branded titles. Yes, Call of Duty has its own legion of following, but Indiana Jones is a separate type of game, but it did very, very well. And so the expectation is that Game Pass should have seen some significant growth. The question becomes, will shipping things like Avowed and Doom Dark Ages and another Fable and a Call of Duty, is that going to be enough to keep everybody's paying that monthly fee that Microsoft wants us to pay effectively? I don't know, and that's what we will find out. And so that is the thing that we will be looking forward to very, very closely here, and not, I would say 2025, but that's like a first quarter 2025 thing, assuming that Microsoft shares the numbers, which they like to try to hide those things. If it's a good number, I'm assuming they'll share it. It'll be about a year, by the way. I think that 35 million number came out in like Q1. I want to say January, it might be February of 2024. So like they're due for an update. We're due for, realistically, they should be doing this every quarter, but I don't get to make the rules. Now, speaking of rules of hardware will be an interesting thing, because Microsoft has once again made it clear that they are not in the business of trying to sell consoles to people who already have their consoles. And what I mean by that is that they did not announce or ship a Series X Pro. I continue to believe that the people who bought the PS5 Pro, which granted, it is more expensive, but the people who bought the PS5 Pro already had a PS5. From Microsoft's perspective, that does not help sell the narrative of we need to sell more Game Pass subscriptions. Somebody who has two consoles is not paying for two subscriptions. And so Microsoft has shut, like, look, we're happy with the hardware we've got. From a console, I should say, that sits underneath your TV or attached to your computer monitor, but you guys know what I mean by console. Microsoft has said this. This is not, I do not expect hardware sales, at least unless they ship a handheld, to dramatically change here in the next year. In fact, they should probably decline, because again, people like myself who already have an Xbox aren't going out and buying another Xbox, because you don't need another one, right? So Xbox sales hardware, I expect to decline. There will be a narrative where like, oh, Xbox is failing because they're not selling more hardware. PlayStation sold more and they made more revenue, but also PlayStation shipped a new console at a very high price point, and they're selling it more than likely to the people who already have a PlayStation. So it doesn't, again, advance the narrative of subscriptions or even selling more games, right? If you have a PS5 and you buy a PS5 Pro, you might get, in a keyword in quotations here, might get a better version of the game you've already purchased. You're not buying more games. So the big question becomes, is this happening? Is Xbox going to build and ship their handheld in 2025? I don't know. However, Jason, in long wizard beard Jason of hardware, Jason Ronald, will be appearing on stage at a Future of Gaming handheld panel next month, I believe at CES. He's also showing up on stage next to Lenovo. This will be another salvo into the market, or the conversation of like, what is an Xbox and how does it play out, right? There's a couple things that people would love to see, right? We'd love to see Xbox build a handheld. Phil Spencer seems like they are going to build a handheld. Although, if their new strategy is not to be building these consoles and letting third parties manage them, I don't know how that plays into it. That is one of the questions of the day, right? Is what is the true next-gen console strategy? Is it a piece of software that can run on an Xbox certified hardware? Remember those things? Remember those things from back in the day? I've got an image around here somewhere. Remember this? Like certified for Windows Vista. I'm curious if we will ever see like a certified for Xbox at the end. And I kind of mean that, like you could buy a piece of hardware, get it certified for Xbox, and then it just plays Xbox games. The whole kit and caboodle experience with a controller just works, right? Xbox Live, deep integration and all that kind of stuff. So also, Phil Spencer has confirmed that they're going to continue to make consoles. So like the hardware strategy is I think they're going to see fewer hardware sales in 2025, but Microsoft has tried to make it very clear that they are not getting out of the hardware business. Like that is it, right? They will still make it. We don't know exactly how that's going to play out, but yeah. So here we are with 2025 now upon us. Microsoft has a couple questions that it needs to answer. Can shipping games consistently at a high quality bar keep people subscribed? There's a percentage number here that we don't know the answer to that will be concerning for Microsoft. So I'm going to use round numbers here. I'm just going to use round numbers, not exact numbers. Let's say that there's 100 million Xbox gamers out there. Right now, they have 34 million Game Pass subscribers. What is the saturation rate of that total population that they will peak at? At some point, they will reach a number where they can no longer sell more Game Pass subscribers or subscriptions to that 100 million population base, because the group has just said either A, they're not active enough gamers to really justify that, or they don't want another subscription. So there's a certain number. Is it 34%? I don't know. Microsoft probably has a guess. Microsoft probably looks at how many people are playing active weekly in various games, and that gives them some percentage of that number, so they know roughly what they can get to. And so we will continue to see if shipping high quality games can get more people from that unsubscribed base into the subscription base, because that is very important to the long-term strategy here. Now, the biggest thing is what I started to hit on here. I think we'll have to be really paying attention closely for this. What is an Xbox, right? Because Microsoft put together the marketing campaign and says, this is an Xbox, right? But I tend to believe, and there's more rumors and information floating out there, that we might see more Xbox hardware devices at the end of the day. So you can imagine, for people who aren't aware, the Xbox OS is just a piece of software that runs on Windows. Now, it's not the Windows you're thinking of like with your desktop computer, but it is Windows at the end of the day. I don't think there's really a lot that can stop Microsoft from just packaging that up and just allowing you to put it on any piece of hardware. Yes, there's compatibility things. The nice thing about a console is that it is a defined piece of hardware with few variables compared to the PC, and it allows for that just press button, get games experience that Xbox and consoles like the PlayStation are known for. So we got to be watching carefully, and I think we're going to get our first kind of clue here about what Jason may or may not say at this event, right? Microsoft wants to sell more subscriptions. They don't want to sell more consoles. I shouldn't say, they'd love to sell more consoles. They'd love to sell more games, but the primary mechanism is to sell subscriptions. It's a lot like the classic radios, like, your AM, FM radios. They're not there to play music. They're there to sell ads. And how do they sell ads? By playing music, right? And so how does Microsoft sell subscriptions? They sell subscriptions by putting out good, high quality games. We could end up in a world where it's a build your own console environment, which is something would be super interesting, right? One of the things that's not appealing about the PC gaming for many people is, one, it's not an even playing field, right? You're always can buy a better GPU. You can always do this or that, right? You can always upgrade, get more RAM, higher, whatever, every year. And the appeal of a console is I paid $500 for my Series X once, put it under the TV, and it'll last a generation. I don't have to worry about anything else. That is one of the downsides to potentially this build your own console, unless Microsoft can be creative about how this all functions. Because at the end of the day, console gamers don't want to be buying hardware every single year. That's why we buy consoles at the end of the day. So if they can do this certified stuff correctly, it might be a super interesting way to expand, again, what is an Xbox? And it could be getting to start to see these certified for Xbox. I do think Microsoft will continue to build a first-party console, at least for this generation, for sure. And handheld, we'll see what they do on the handheld side, but Microsoft is not going to stop building hardware, because from a company perspective, it is one of their last few bastions that connects to the consumer that is not an enterprise sales, if you look at how Microsoft makes its money in general. So it's going to be super interesting to see from that perspective, but I still continue to think this will not be a quote-unquote critical year for Xbox, because the strategy of subscriptions and games and a pipeline might finally materialize. We honestly thought this was probably going to be a thing like 2 years ago, if I'm being honest, but here we are heading into 2025, and we're still talking about Xbox consistently kicking out high quality games. And so now it feels like maybe they finally got that pipeline after pushing everything back quite a bit to finally get there. So this is like what I'm going to be looking for in 2025 specifically. Will Xbox ever give us Game Pass numbers? If they don't give us Game Pass numbers in January, I honestly interpret that as a not good sign. That means, and if they have to pivot, I don't know what happens then. We're not going to go down that route because we don't have enough information on that yet. Start looking in the tea leaves to see like, hey, is Microsoft going to start building out a more of an Xbox ecosystem among PC players? Because the one critical thing that you cannot do today, you cannot take a console game and just go play it on a PC. You can get close, but you cannot natively do that. with all of the Xbox Live experiences, right? I mean, friends list, achievements, the whole kit and caboodle. So I expect to continue to see Microsoft bring these things together so that it's just one experience depending on if you're PC or a console. Be very clear, friends. That console today is just a slightly modified PC. It's not like the cartridge systems some of us grew up with, where you have that big plastic thing and you slap it down in there. So I'm looking to see, what are they doing with the console space when it comes to software? Are the Game Pass numbers there? And are they showing sustainable growth that Microsoft is going to continue to support this effort at the rate that they are? Or are they going to start clamping down and starting holding Xbox, I don't want to say more accountable, because they're definitely being held accountable internally. But what's going to start to happen about the long tail future now that the strategy is in place? The handheld, super interesting. We don't know what they're doing there. Obviously, the Switch is a home run for Nintendo. However, Microsoft has a not rich history of trying to chase other companies, namely Apple, down various roadmaps of products. And so even Surface fell into this trap of trying to ship all these things to match Apple one-to-one, and it never worked out. So shipping a handheld is very dicey, because yes, the Steam Deck, I want to say Stream Deck, which is what I use to control all this stuff, is a thing that does fairly well, at least from what we understand, but it's not a console level sale. So yeah, this is like, I love to do these videos every year. I've done one every January, and try to understand how things materialize, because last year's conversation was completely different. It's like, can they ship games, like legitimately ship games at a consistent rate that makes sense and makes Game Pass viable? So I think they got past the can they ship games. Now the question is, do gamers want to keep paying for it at the current rate? Well, there you go. Strap in for 2025. I think it's going to be a fun year. I think there's going to be a lot of good games to talk about, a lot of good games to play, and hopefully not a lot of delays. Microsoft and Xbox have really gotten away from promising dates too far out into the future. So as always, my friends, make sure to keep it subscribed here, because the BS on this channel is me.